This edict identifies Jesus of Nazareth as a heretic and a blasphemer.
This season on The Chosen.
There are those for whom this will set off a series of events. My followers won't understand.
Lazarus, come out!
I guess you're not holding back anymore.
I can't. I'm out of time.
See Season 4 of The Chosen in theaters on February 1st, starting with episodes 1, 2, and 3. Get your tickets now at thechosenriseup.com.
This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. And we do want to give a shout out to some of our latest supporters: Tina A., Molly M., Aiden without a last initial, Keith P., Becky S., Duran H. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Hemant. How are you?
I'm excellent. Can
I'm
I start by
so
telling
glad
you
to
the
hear
thing
that
that
I'm
I am
doing
so
fine. I appreciate
excited
when you
about?
ask me.
It's
Yeah.
what I do. Okay. I want to tell you about the podcast that I just launched without you.
So fucking rude. You come to our house and promote your podcast?
How I
This
roll.
is how you do me.
Yes. So this is a project I've been working on
I want a
for
producer
a
credit.
bunch of months. I told you some details. I did not tell you a ton of details. And I'm telling you about this because if you're listening to this podcast, maybe you're interested, and I would so greatly appreciate any pledge you could give on Kickstarter to make this thing happen. In fact, if you're listening, you should stop and go to Kickstarter now, and I'll tell you why.
I am right now.
Here is the project I'm working on. Basically, it's about the Pledge of Allegiance. And the thing I want to talk about is that every time it's in the news, because someone's not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, I end up writing some story on the website, but it's always about the current controversy, why I think it's a problem, something like that. I never really get to explore the history of the pledge. I never get to talk about the writing of it or the older controversies or the fact that all the issues that pop up today are old ones that have popped up before. And so I wanted to explore that in a lot more depth. And I think talking about that story rather than trying to write out a giant book, because that's been done before. I've seen textbooks like about the history. They're not exciting. They're not interesting.
Right.
And I don't really care about like the life of Francis Bellamy, the guy who wrote the pledge. I care about like the relevant portion of that story. So this podcast that I'm working on about the Pledge of Allegiance walks through that entire history, but like all the good stuff. It's here are the conflicts and the controversies, not just why under God is in the pledge, but what happened as a result of it. What was going on behind the scenes to make that happen? How did it nearly destroy a presidential campaign?
Ooh.
How did the Supreme Court rule about make a ruling on the Pledge of Allegiance, then realize in the moment, oh no, we've made a huge mistake? And just because they made a mistake, what do? You can't erase the decision you just made. So how did they figure that out? Like the Supreme Court issue by itself is worth, I think, the story. But the fact that like there's a kid from 100 years ago who got in trouble for saying we don't have liberty and justice for all because I'm a black kid in the south side of Chicago or something. And I know that's not true. And he got in trouble for protesting it. And the fact that...
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Jehovah's Witnesses, who we routinely point out, call out for their policies, which are harmful, are the heroes of the story in a lot of ways when it comes to the pledge cases. So I talk about all of that. This is, I don't know how many episodes this will be. There's a lot. But writing it has taken already a few months, but it's kind of one of those like passion projects. And I would love to take on more if this Kickstarter works. But this is what the show will be. There is different music. There is graphic design stuff that has to be done behind the scenes. And then it's a lot of time and effort to do it. That's why I'm doing this on Kickstarter. So if you go to Kickstarter and you search Pledge of Allegiance, you will find the listing. Any support you could give would be appreciated. And I really hope podcast listeners of this show are interested in that project because it's me. It's scripted. I should say that. It's not just me talking off the cuff, so it's different than something like this. And
Look what I just did.
Thank you. I'm done with the Kickstarter now. Thank you.
You hit your goal with my
hit the goal.
$25.
Thank you.
He was only raising $25.
No, I appreciate that.
I do want my personalized thank you card.
You did that while I was talking. It was easy to do. Thank you so much.
And I had to figure out how to log into Kickstarter.
I know.
Which took me 3 tries.
Look at that. So, hey, make it happen. And
yeah, I think this is a really interesting project. I think it's, I don't know, I like this sort of long form journalism that's really popular in podcasts right now.
I'm modeling it off of Hardcore History, which I really enjoy, which is just a guy talking about the most boring topics. Like, here's World War I history.
Right.
But then Dan Carlin spends like 23 hours doing it.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, this is fascinating the way you tell this. So I'm trying to emulate that. I'm telling you, I have like 35 pages of this script written, and it's way too small of a font, and it's insane. But it's all interesting stuff, and I cut out all the crap from the histories of the pledge that I'm like, no one cares about this. So it's all the good stuff, and it's still growing.
So it's like a Ken Burns documentary.
Yes.
But probably shorter. Because Ken Burns documentaries are...
They go forever.
72 hours a piece each episode.
Yeah.
And you have better hair than he does. So
That's what I keep telling people. And hopefully, again, it'll be worth your time. I think if you care about the stories we talk about every week, imagine that, but at an epic scale, because these are Supreme Court cases. These are protests, and there's violence involved. There is literal castration involved.
Yikes.
How does that play into the story?
We'll
I'm not
have
telling
to
you.
We'll have to listen.
Yeah. So anyway,
That's really
pledge if you
exciting.
can. I would appreciate it. And if we hit the goal, I'll shut up about it until the thing comes out.
Yeah, it's true.
But
Good luck.
make it happen. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it'll be going on for another
And
3
just
weeks.
sorry,
of
I must have
fundraising.
missed when you
Yes.
said the part I was going to be in.
Oh, right. You make a cameo at hour 7. I haven't figured out how yet.
Just do some Foley work.
If you could just scream and represent the violin aspect, we
Sure.
should be good.
Do you want me to record a bunch of sounds that I make and you can have them on a soundboard in case you just need scream
like it.
laughter? Just drop
Laugh
it.
track. There we go. That would be awesome. So, thank you in advance. I hope you like it because I've spent so much time on it. God, I hope you like it. So anyway, there's
All right.
that. And let me get one more story out of the way just because it's sad, and I just want to. I want to make sure we talk about it before we get to something more chaotic. We talked about her a couple weeks ago, Rachel Held Evans. She is the progressive Christian writer. A couple of weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction to some medicine. She went into a medically induced coma. And we had talked about it just a couple of days after that happened, saying, hope she gets better. And then several days ago, over the weekend, just out of nowhere, I see on Slate, they had the news really quickly and must have prepared for it. She passed away. She was 37. She has 2 kids who are the ages of my kids, too, which I'm just I don't know what I would do if that happened to my spouse or me or whatever. So I've seen a lot of coverage in the sense of so many people saying what she meant to them. And I realize, she was a Christian author, and a lot of people gave her credit for keeping them in the fold when they were so ready to leave. And I realized that's not exactly exciting for atheists, but what she did and what I think she inspired a lot of people to do, especially Christian women, is to speak out against the same kind of crap that we often talk about when it comes to white evangelical Christians. They speak out now. She did it well against purity culture and the whole patriarchal version of evangelical Christianity, the hypocrisies on the political side of things with the evangelical base. She always talked about it, pushed back against it, and really encouraged a lot of other, especially Christian women, to do the same. And so it was really interesting seeing how many, this was not in a bubble. This is not a Christian writer who passes and then, only Christians are writing about the reflections about it. There were obituaries in the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Atlantic. And they were all the writers too are just we all knew her because she would send us thank you messages after articles that she thought were important, which is something very few people do, especially when you're as famous as she was in that world. So it's a sad story, but I think what everyone's taking away from it is She was always kind even to her enemies, but always critical and not afraid of it. And you rarely see that, I feel, like in that other direction. But I hope that voice, even if it's not coming from her, continues in Christian circles, because it means a lot more when Christians are the ones calling out their own, because they will pay attention to that a lot more than if we do it.
Yeah, and I think that we were on the same team in every important way. Like, she believed in God, whereas we didn't, but we are fighting for the same things she was.
And remember, she even said she was anti-abortion. However, she made the very logical point before the 2016 elections that, hey, I want to see fewer abortions because I am pro-life, she says. So I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because I realize that's the way you decrease abortions.
Right.
You put into place policies that will lessen the need for them.
Right.
And obviously that's the right answer, because banning abortions, as I'm sure we'll talk about later in this, is going to make things worse for everybody. So, I mean, again, this is what you mean by we weren't on the same page about everything, but we did share a lot of the same values, or at least the methods and the ways to get there. So, I'm not going to pretend to say like I was close with her. We talked before in the past, but it is sad to see someone who was like a voice of relative reason in religious circles, to see her go at a young age. And it's just awful.
It's a tragedy.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure we covered that early. Do you want to talk about something totally different?
I guess.
Let's talk about this that happened this morning. Today's Thursday. Hi. Pope Francis came out with a new set of rules for the Catholic Church today.
How did I miss Pope news?
I know, you missed Pope news. It was very quiet. There's a lot of other stuff happening. Pope Francis has announced new rules, like from the Vatican on down, in order to curb child sexual abuse in the church.
Okay.
Like, everyone complains like the church doesn't do enough. And he's like, well, guess what? We have a new policy in place that, because he's the Pope, everyone has to do now. So here's essentially what the Pope says has to happen. There's whistleblower protections for anyone who makes a report about this.
There wasn't already.
Right, there wasn't already. Every diocese in the world has to have a system in place, like a written down policy system in place, about how they're going to deal with allegations, because they have to make sure confidential allegations can be made and you don't necessarily even know who's making them, per se. But no, I take that back. They just have to be confidential. No one can find out about it except whoever you're reporting it to.
Oh, okay.
So it's not going to be a big deal. And if the person you are accusing happens to be in a position of power, there has to be a system in place for you to tell someone even higher up. So like we talked months ago, Cardinal Law, the guy who was convicted of abuse, he's in jail now or whatever, or he's found guilty.
Law. I'm thinking of Cardinal Pell. That's the only one I know.
God, I can't keep them straight now. Sorry, it's one of them. But when it's someone high up, you can go higher because you got to report them. There's that system in place. So, like, if the accused is really high up, you can tell the Vatican.
Tell the Pope.
All priests and nuns are now mandated reporters. So, good. They weren't? Yeah, well, now they are. There's no statute of limitations. If you know something now, you can come forth.
That's helpful.
Even if it happened in the past, just so we get it on the record. And even if, like, an attorney general didn't do anything about it or didn't know about it, you can tell us now. It's okay. And it's not just about child abuse, because we've seen stories about nuns getting abused. It applies to that form, too. Like, anyone's getting abused, you could tell us. So all of that is fine. That's good. And every diocese has to have a policy in place, and they have to tell the Vatican, here's what we're doing by June 1st of next year. But the system is in place June 1st of this year.
Okay.
So, that's good. Like, that is a step. Here's what I think they're missing. A couple things they don't have in the rules. There is no rule saying you have to report allegations to secular law enforcement. That rule is not in place. And the Vatican keeps saying the reason they didn't include that is because there are parts of the world where you cannot trust local law enforcement, and Catholics are already persecuted minorities. So they don't want to say always tell, like, local cops.
Sure.
What they say is you have to follow the law in your jurisdiction. So if you're in Chicago, you have to follow whatever the state's laws are about reporting. We're not going to stop you from that. But again, there are some places where those laws are not in place, where you got to tell them what's going on. So that's where it gets a little iffy. There's no penalty for churches who don't follow these rules. Like, what is the church going to do if you don't report it properly or you're not? Like, there's no penalty with the rules. He just said, you got to do this now.
Well, presumably he's infallible or whatever, so...
Yeah. There's nothing in the rule book about financial reparations for victims. So if you say, hey, this kid was molested by a priest, they'll try to handle the priest.
Right.
There's nothing they're doing about the kid.
Jesus.
That's for other people to deal with.
Almost like
right?
they don't really care and they're just trying to cover their own ass.
Here's one they didn't talk about, and I haven't heard a good answer to this. What if the abuser tells the priest, I have done this horrible thing, in the confessional booth? There's no rule that says... you got to report that. That doesn't count because that's sacred.
Pretty big on breaking that, on not breaking that guy.
Right. If an allegation of abuse is found, okay. So there's in every diocese, every church has its bishop, the leader, fine, and the bishops have someone in the area, even if it's not like the cardinal or like the archbishop. They might have a metropolitan bishop who kind of oversees a few different dioceses. If the metropolitan bishop, that's the term, says, you came to me with this allegation, but you know what? I don't think it's founded in any facts. I don't buy this. Then it can be ignored.
Oh, cool. Well, that's that then, I guess.
Yeah. So part of it depends on how trustworthy is this metropolitan bishop. Because if he's the problem, then what the hell? So there's a lot of loopholes that are still there.
Yeah, it feels like there's not a ton of tea. It's more of a gesture than anything. I mean, listen,
again, step in the right direction, but
I don't want to over-reward that, though.
Right. So there's that.
Cool. So they solved that.
So they solved the problem.
Catholic Church.
Kind of, sort of, not really. Another one that happened just today, I don't think you've seen this yet because it just happened. Gallup came out with a poll about presidential candidates.
Oh.
And they do this every 4 years-ish. And they basically say, if you could vote for someone in your political party for president, and that person, and the candidate happened to be a blank, would you support that candidate? Right? And it's always like, would you support, like, the Democrat, in our case, presidential candidate, if that person were black? And the answer is like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like,
people are racist?
Because, like,
was that a rhetorical question?
4% of people said no.
Cool.
But 96% now say, yeah, I'm fine with the black candidate. Why would that be a deal breaker?
Like part of the error, like a rounding error?
Yeah, I would hope. And that's actually higher. In 2015, when they asked the same question, it was only 92%. So again, most of the categories, would you vote for Hispanic? Yeah, like 90-some%, high 90s. Say, yeah, I'm fine with that. Why wouldn't I? Hispanic, a woman, a Catholic, someone who's Jewish. These are all in the 90s. And historically, the bottom of this list has always been atheists.
Yes.
But then in 2015, for the first time, atheists were not at the bottom of the list.
Oh.
Because in 2015, they added another category.
Oh, so we didn't pass anybody.
Yeah, no, they just added a new category that took up the bottom spot.
Oh, no. Well, who was it?
Thanks, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Socialist. Socialist
really?
only. Yeah, 47% of people said they would vote for a socialist, which means everyone else was like, yeah, even if it was my party,
Wait,
I don't know.
Atheists are more popular than socialists?
In 2015,
All right.
58% of people said, I'll consider an atheist, but only 47% said socialist.
And welcome to 47% AOC. I'll show you the ropes down here.
We're not last. So the question is 2019 now.
Yeah.
What are they going to say now? Socialist is still last and still at 47%.
Okay.
Like there's been no dent in that one.
Which is shocking because I feel like socialism has become less
of a stigmatized thing. Like, yeah, with AOC saying, using
Bernie
the label
Sanders.
and Bernie Sanders having years of like that label under his belt in the news, you would think it would have gone up. Not much difference.
cool.
Atheist has gone up a little bit.
Okay.
60% now say I will vote for an atheist from my party, as in it's not a deal breaker for me.
Are we going to get a Meta Bloomkey ticket going for 2020?
No, because 60% is freakishly low for your own people saying... By the way...
It's so few people.
It's
they hate
so
us
few
so
people.
much.
Among Democrats, the number's only 71%. Even only 71% of Democrats are like, yeah, I would vote for this person if that was the Democratic candidate, but if they were an atheist, only 71% say yes.
It's like that Twitter thread I got in with actor Hal Sparks, who was very unsure about atheism and then got
immoral, evil.
Well, and he got offended for me of implying that he was an asshole. I can't believe it. Wait, so how many Democrats would vote for a socialist? Is it still the lowest on Democrats?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Well, if you're not going to do the work.
47% overall. I'm afraid of opening up any more tabs right now because this thing will shut down. I'm sure of it.
Has already today.
Here's the one upside. The first time Gallup did a poll like this and included atheist on the list, it was 1958.
Oh.
Atheist scored 18%.
Fucking more than doubled it.
We
tripled
it. Yeah, now. But remember, 2012 is the first time
took 3 generations.
Yeah, 2012 is the first time we crossed 50%. 2015 was the first time we were not last.
Again,
on this
by
list.
default, though.
By default. And now it's 60%. I mean, we can only really go up. But here's what I mean, unless some atheist does something stupid. Here's what I would add, though. At least with socialists, you have a couple of very prominent politicians who embrace the word and talk about the word, and they're not afraid of it. And that helps, decrease that stigma. We don't have any atheist politicians at that level.
Right.
Who are just it's not like Pete Buttigieg is going on TV where they're like, well, you're an atheist. What is the deal with that? And then he could give some eloquent answer about it. And it's like, oh, you're not that scary about that. I don't mind voting for you if you're the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not, by the way, if you're curious, when it comes to gay or lesbian, 76% now say I would vote for that person.
Cool. That's kind of reassuring.
So it is, it's getting there.
Yeah.
So it's I think if you just had a politician of prominence, of national prominence, who was open about their atheism, but just didn't talk about it unless you asked them to, I think that would change the stigma faster than just about anything else. And it would change this number faster than anything else. But in the next election, 2020, at least at the national level, they're not going to be talking about it because there's no candidate in the wings or even in the running who is openly atheist, so it's not an issue. So there's no one talking about it during every interview. There's a bunch at the state level, near 50, who are in office right now who are openly non-religious. No one who's talking about it on the presidential scale.
Right.
One member of Congress who isn't in the news a lot. So,
Hemant, if we ran for president,
yes,
who is the bigger liability, me as a woman or you as a brown?
Ooh.
Probably you as a brown.
Me as a brown.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's a Bloomkey meta ticket.
And that doesn't even get into all the shit I've written for 12 years.
Yeah. I mean, I have a shorter paper trail,
That's
but
before you Google me.
Just showing her pictures.
So it will not happen, is what I'm trying to say.
Can we talk about this vaccine story? Because it is buck wild. And this is a once again, and I feel like this is going to be my new segment of, hey, friendly atheist listener, you should run for something because this idiot is a lawmaker. Yes. You can do it too. I guarantee you're smarter than this man. So Dr. Peter Hotez, he's a vaccine advocate, pediatrician. He develops vaccines of neglected diseases for third world countries. So a pretty good dude, I would say. A
modern hero.
I don't know how he got into it with Stickland. Can you speak
Twitter.
to that?
So
Just
this
Twitter.
guy was on Twitter saying you gotta get vaccinated, basically.
Oh, he was citing falling vaccination rates in Texas.
And how that's bad.
And how that's a bad thing.
People need to get their vaccinations. And then unbeknownst to him, the guy who responds to him on Twitter saying, basically, screw you, is a Texas state legislator.
Right. So this is Texas Representative John Stickland. He is a Republican. He like retweeted with the comment, you are bought and paid for by the biggest special interest in politics. Do our state a favor and mind your own business. Parental rights mean more to us than your self-enriching, scare quotes, science.
He put science in scare quotes.
Hashtag
Texas legislature.
TXLEG. That's
I think
a
he
bad
just
hashtag.
spelled it wrong. But Hotez then responds back like, wow, that's impressive from a member of the Texas House. Sir, as you know, I don't take a dime from the vaccine industry. I develop neglected disease vaccines for the world's poorest people. And as a Texas pediatrician / scientist, like, it is most certainly my business, which is a totally sane, normal, fine answer.
And then things go off the rails. Representative responds, make the case for your sorcery to consumers on your own dime, like every other business. Quit using the heavy hand of government to make your business profitable through mandates and immunity. It's disgusting.
He called vaccines sorcery.
But there's like one more, like the cherry on top.
Uh-huh.
Typical leftist trying to take credit for something only the Lord God Almighty is in control of. Repent!
Oh, my God. Yeah, if that guy's in office, and what are you all doing?
He called vaccines sorcery. And
to make your business your business of helping poor people in third world countries.
Oh, a historically popular or profitable business. That's why so many millionaires are putting their money into third world healthcare.
Yeah.
It's because it just has great
Silicon
ROI.
Valley is just all about vaccine investments in third world nations.
You guys, you could be a state legislator. If you're in Texas, I don't know where this guy is from. Fucking unseat him.
It's just that easy.
I don't know
Just
where
like
he's
that.
from. I just can't believe it. I can't believe this man is a real human. Can't believe he used sorcery unironically. I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody do that.
He was angry because the whole story involved the vaccine exemptions that have to do with reasons of personal conscience, which is the dumbest reason to get a vaccine exemption. And he was complaining about that because the doctor was still going, like, saying that's a bad thing.
Listen.
Oh.
Sometimes I feel like a big old dummy. When I read things like this, I'm like, God, I'm a fucking genius.
I know.
I can't believe I'm not a Rhodes Scholar when people like this are walking around the earth.
And similar story in Kentucky, where a Catholic student in Kentucky, because Kentucky's full of Catholic students who really make very bad decisions.
Yeah, Kentucky, get your shit together, you guys. You're having a bad year.
He sued the Northern Kentucky Health Department a while back.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show.
Talked about that. State officials banned unvaccinated kids from school and extracurriculars because you're unvaccinated. Get the hell out.
But there was also a big chickenpox outbreak. So they said, get this vaccine.
Right.
Otherwise...
Because too many lives are at stake here. This kid said, I'm suing you over it.
Yeah,
he's 18.
Jerome
Kunkel. He sued over it. And guess what happened to him this week?
Well, he certainly didn't get the chickenpox. He was praying too hard.
He got the chickenpox. Because God didn't hear his prayers and karma is real.
I'm not celebrating somebody getting the chickenpox, but also, yeah.
Someone has to get them.
This is how it goes, bud. You don't make up the rules.
And he's lucky because he can get vaccinated.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to die from this.
Yeah, that's
But the
other
problem
thing.
is when you have chickenpox, there may be people around you who cannot get vaccinated, who can get hurt from it. That's who we're trying to protect here because you're too full of it and ignorant to get your shots.
I might have talked about this before, but I think it's funny when people cite the chickenpox vaccine and be like, well, I had it as a kid and it was no big deal. It's
Kentucky's governor. The governor was like, I take my kids to chickenpox parties.
Yes. And that's the thing is it's not a big deal. A lot of people get it. It's not fatal, so we shouldn't worry about it. There can be very serious complications, especially if you're older. B, is not giving your kid a disease not a good enough reason? Is not wanting to watch your kid suffer for 2 weeks not a good enough reason to vaccinate your child? Even if it wasn't ultimately harmless disease, it's uncomfortable and itchy. don't know what people are monsters is the problem.
My kids don't have any medical issues with these shots, and it's not hard. Like, we go to the doctor when we have to go to, like, when a kid's born, it's like, come every month or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, it's been 3 months. This time you need shots X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, this is going to be annoying for the kid for an hour or something. And then he cries for a little bit, and then he's over it. And then we move on, and then we don't think about it again until the next shot.
Babies are like
it's
goldfish.
not hard. Yes, exactly. They're the Etch-a-Sketch, right? Like, they will forget everything.
Hemant,
you shake it,
You're
it's
not
fine.
supposed to shake your baby. We always talk about this.
And so it's not even hard if you're just visiting the doctor on a regular basis, like you're supposed to when you just have the baby.
No, you have to make an effort to like opt out of that shit.
Yes,
and
exactly.
If you're doing it, you're stupid and cruel.
You know what I've been waiting for that I haven't seen yet? Like, when they say, all right, well, we have to get these shots and you have to sign the paper so we can give the shots. It's like, yeah, fine. Give me the damn paper and I'll sign it. And, like, there's never any conflict. They're just like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, Dad. Like, fine.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting. I'm wondering at some point if they're going to be like, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with any of this shit.
I've thought about that, too.
I haven't seen that look yet, but every time I'm like, I wonder how you're going to react when I'm just like, yeah, just give it to me. I'll sign it.
When you pick your kids' doctors, do you ask if they allow unvaccinated
I literally
kids?
picked the only Indian doctor in my area who did pediatrics.
Seriously?
Yeah, and here's why. She'll understand what the kid's going through with my parents. She'll know what they're eating. She'll know what they deal with. And so she just gets it. It's not a racist thing. It's like, you get my culture,
no,
so I don't have to ask
saying
questions.
seriously like you sought out an Indian pediatrician. I said seriously because my last 3 doctors have been Indian or
Well,
like Indian or Pakistani.
It's
like,
gonna happen. We literally were like, she's close by, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Literally, I've been there. I'm like, just give me whoever you got.
Right.
But
oh my God,
as
you're
a
such an
primary
attentive
doctor,
parent.
it's like, yeah, give me the brown one. She gets me.
Oh, that's so good.
We don't even have to like wink at each other. It's like, I know what you're doing. It's all good. She gets me. We have conversations. This is a story that got really weird. Okay, here's what I found out. Someone sends me a link to a random Facebook post made by people who are not in the news for anything. It's just, she's like, this popped up on my Facebook feed, passes it along to me. I look at it, and it's a picture of a random dude. Maybe he's a pastor. Maybe he's associated with a part of the church that does baptisms. But this is a church called Gateway Fellowship Church in Kerrville, Texas.
Doesn't it feel like they just rolled dice with like church, like churchy kind of names?
Church bingo, and they got these, Gateway Fellowship. And what they showed is this pastor dude is like, hey, look, this guy at our church got baptized, and we're so proud of him. And we have some happy pictures of this guy right before he got baptized.
An adult?
I think he's 25 or 26.
Okay.
And he's holding a sign, and the sign says, and I'm quoting, I believed a lie from the devil that I was gay until ... And if you turn over the poster, which is in the second picture, and they're all like throwing their hands in the air, celebrating, God showed me his gateway. I'm going to ignore the innuendo here.
Yeah, that's low-hanging fruit, Hemant, and you're better than that.
No, I'm not. I believed a lie from the devil that I was gay. This is what they're like, yay, we helped this guy get rid of the lie from the devil.
Okay, that's another. I feel like at least once a week you bring a story that I have seen on Facebook or whatever and scrolled by assuming it was like a bad Photoshop job.
Yeah, no. Real thick pictures.
Jesus.
The guy who's getting baptized posted a video of his baptism, and you could see him it's literally a big tub. You could see him getting in the tub, holding up the poster for the crowd to see, so they're all cheering on this idea that God makes you gay, the devil makes you gay.
Yeah, idiot.
And you can cure yourself of it, and now you can get baptized because you've sworn off the gay. He gets dunked in the baptismal pool after he shows everyone the picture. Then and both of these groups, the pastor dude and the guy getting baptized, posted Facebook messages celebrating their baptism, thinking nothing of the sign, really. And everyone in the comments are like, the fuck are you people? What's wrong with you all? What are you doing? Yeah. Overwhelmingly, everyone's like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
The guy who got baptized then posts a video making an apology of sorts. not saying I was wrong, saying like, I'm sorry if I offended anybody. And then everything I just told you gets deleted offline.
Really?
They must have realized, oh, by the way, along the way, I Facebook messaged the church and I'm like, hi, I'm this dude. I write some stuff. I want to know what your church says. Is being gay a choice? Did the devil cause people to be gay? What is your stance on it? I got the red receipt. Like, I know they saw it. I never got a response.
Why?
And then everything got deleted. Not before I saved every screenshot and downloaded every video, though. So all of this still exists. I'll post a link to it. But like, oh my God, they convinced this guy who a year ago-ish had posted something on Facebook with like, he seems happy. He's standing on a nice photogenic bridge with some balloons saying, I'm 25 today and I'm proud to be gay and open about it. Like, oh, good for you. Like, you seem really happy. And they basically guilt-tripped that out of him. And yeah, like, oh my God, I don't want to make fun of the guy because, like, he's the victim in all this, I think, even though he's 25. But, like, what is wrong with all of these people that they're telling this kid? Because they don't say this in public. They, like, the standard evangelical line is, you can be gay. There's nothing wrong with that. God makes you gay, but don't act on it. That's the standard line. But yet this kid's holding up a thing saying being gay is something the devil did. And I'm over that lie. Like, no, in private, they're still pushing that myth. So that's what pissed me off about this. And it's just, oh, you're
that's
brainwashing
really
this kid. That's awful.
Yeah, poor guy.
Do you want to talk about Jerry Falwell? Can we talk about Jerry Falwell?
Sure.
Oh, man.
I didn't know Jerry Falwell did a thing this week.
Oh, let me tell you.
Okay.
Oh, my God. Okay, so here's the story as I understand it.
This is honestly the happiest I've ever seen Hemant, and I was at his wedding.
There's less stress with this. So, Jerry Falwell, this is the story that we just learned now. Before the election in 2016, before Jerry Falwell famously endorsed Donald Trump, like months before everyone else was doing it, he asked Jerry Falwell Jr. at Liberty University, asked Michael Cohen, the Trump fixer attorney dude who's now in prison for years, like, hey, there are some, quote, racy personal pictures of me that someone has, and I need you to take care of it.
Please be a man, please be a man, please be a man.
We don't know. And here's why we know this. Michael Cohen was speaking to comedian Tom Arnold. Yeah, I know, it gets weird. Tom Arnold recorded their conversation without Cohen knowing, and now that Cohen's in prison,
Arnold, you sly dog.
And now that Cohen is in prison, Tom Arnold is releasing that audio that he said, I told Michael Cohen I would not release it until he's in prison. Now he's in prison, so here you go. And the conversation says, the Falwells wanted to keep, this is Cohen, a bunch of photographs, personal photographs from becoming public. I actually have one of the photos.
Yes.
Cohen. It's terrible, says Cohen. We don't know what the photo is. I don't know if he has it, but according to Cohen,
paint us a word picture, Cohen.
We don't know, but he met with whoever the person is who had these pictures, or maybe that person's lawyer. According to Cohen, everything's destroyed now, except for the one he apparently has. And that's it. That's what he told Tom Arnold. And that's the last we heard of it. And then suddenly, chronologically, Falwell endorses Trump and has endorsed Trump ever since. Now, what are the photos? As far as we know,
it's
like
a ding-dong photo for sure.
Think about the options here.
Ding-dong photo.
Could be a dick pic. It could be something between him and his wife, and I don't care, and it's none of our business, except that I don't think Liberty would be okay with it if students did that with their significant. I don't know.
But also, I don't think that's likely, because how would that fall into somebody else's? That
That's
seems the
question.
least likely thing to fall into
Why
somebody
would that
else's
be in
hands.
anyone else's hands unless they hacked his phone and just took that? But again, why would you hack Jerry Falwell Jr.'s phone? I don't know. And then you think
Now I'm good.
there's
It
a
sounds like he's got some
story.
good shit
There's
on
a
there.
separate story from like a year ago about like how Jerry Falwell has property in Florida, and that involves a pool boy. And it's been a running joke ever since. Like, what's Jerry Falwell's pool boy up to? And oh my God, now you include that in the mix. It's like, I wonder what's going on.
Oh my
people's
God.
imaginations are running wild.
Please have a gay affair, Jerry Falwell.
Oh my God.
Oh, it'd make me so
So,
happy.
of course, Falwell has since said there are no photos. There never were any photos.
Sure.
This is all a hoax, whatever. We don't have any other details about it. I did hear that the pool boy made a statement saying, "Stop calling me pool boy." That's degrading.
I mean, it is.
But basically, like, it's just, of course, I'm like, it wouldn't even surprise me if Jerry Falwell did something. Not that he did something that's like scandalous,
Right.
Like whatever. I don't care
But
what he does in his
hypocritical.
private life, but hypocritical.
Yeah.
And like, if it involves a pool boy, all the better.
Ugh.
But oh my God. So, and this is
Nasty.
the same guy Jerry Falwell Jr., who this week like tweeted Donald Trump deserves an extra 2 years in the White House for what Mueller has put him through.
Yeah,
and then Trump retweeted that. And then they're both like, we were joking. Like, I didn't see the LOL in your tweet.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
definitely not a thing dictators
Oh
say.
my God. So it's the greatest
Oh my
story
Christ.
ever.
Also, what is he talking about? Like, Trump had nothing to do with that thing. Like, it had no effect on his presidency. His first 2 years were a failure because he's a failure of a human.
Yes.
Oh, and this week is when we found out that Trump is like $1 billion in debt.
Just within that 10 years, he lost $1 billion.
When 10 years.
Do you know how long it would take to just burn $1 billion? I
don't know.
Literally with a match in a silo.
I stupidly was looking at like the comment section on CNN, and people are either gullible or Russian trolls or something. Because like somebody was like, "Bless him for being able to pull himself out of that difficult situation." Like, wow, y'all can find like the best side in any shit sandwich
or the
here.
Fox News channel take that like, wow, he's accomplished so much. Like,
Can you imagine?
how do you lose that much money running casinos?
Which are literally all they do is
they're mathematically money makers. If you're the house, you have to try to lose money.
yeah, that's wild.
So yeah, totally.
Definitely, he's really
Ridiculous.
rich, so don't worry about that. Don't
Oh
need to
my
see
God.
his tax
All
return.
right, let's talk about everything going on in Georgia because there's a
Oh,
lot.
Georgia, guys, runner up for Kentucky is the state to watch.
Yeah. So the governor this week signed a heartbeat bill. This is the most extreme anti-abortion bill in the country now. It basically gives personhood to any fetus at like 6 weeks old before some women even know they're pregnant. And I was reading like, here's the consequences. Like he signed this. It's a thing now. Of course, there will be a lawsuit and odds are a judge will put a stay on it. Like it won't go into effect and it won't go into effect anyway for a little while to come, barring a lawsuit anyway. But that's the whole point. They want this to get up to Brett Kavanaugh. Like that's why they wanted him on the Supreme Court. They want him to say, yeah, this is totally legal.
Fucking monsters.
But the consequences of this, and this is a compilation from different people tweeting things about it. Here's what the bill doesn't answer. If the fetus is a person at 6 weeks, can child support start then for the men involved? What about if you're a refugee or an immigrant? Like, can you be deported since you're carrying a U.S.-born citizen in your body?
Oh, yeah.
Can you insure a 6-week-old fetus and then collect money if you miscarry it with life insurance?
Yeah.
By the way, rape and incest, the exemptions to that for rape and incest only apply if I think you would need to have a doctor's note that it was rape or that it was incest. I think your parents have to sign off on it if it's, I don't know. Like if you have incest, you need permission to get an abortion from somebody, probably the people
That
who
makes
did
sense.
it to you.
As long as we don't trust women to make their own decisions about themselves, I'm cool with this.
By the way, if you're in Georgia and you travel out of state to get an abortion, doesn't matter. You could still be prosecuted and
for
put
like
in prison.
attempted abortion or something.
Or no, for doing the abortion, you committed a crime, the law still applies, and you could go to prison for up to 10 years. And the way the penalty works, in theory, you could be eligible for the death penalty. That's the crazy end of things, but it's already crazy. But basically, this is doing what pro-life people, quote unquote, always say they don't want to do, which is punish women for having an abortion. They always, again, the standard for that side has always been, let's punish the doctors, not the women, because the women are the victims. This bill flat out punishes the women. And again, women miscarry. That means if they go through the trauma of a miscarriage, especially when they want to have the baby, now, like, the police have to come by to make sure it wasn't an abortion. Because, who knows? We might have to put you in jail after what you've just been through.
I mean, I definitely trust police to understand the difference between a miscarriage and abortion.
Well, police are good at everything.
Yeah,
always.
They're notoriously really trustworthy.
Yes. If they can prove that a miscarriage was second-degree murder, which is what this could charge women with, she could go to jail for up to 30 years. So that's Georgia for you. Now, again, there will be a lawsuit. It will get to court. It will get to the Supreme Court. Even if they strike it down, these heartbeat bills are still everywhere to varying degrees of extremism. But again, this is what happens when you put Republicans in charge, or they change the rules to put themselves in charge, as they did in Georgia.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I really have a problem with because there are anti-choice atheists who are like, I'm totally rational, reasonable. I'm not a part of the religious right, but they believe all the same bullshit that these people are doing, and they're fine with it.
I don't care what your core beliefs are. If you're anti-choice and fuck clean off, I do not want to hear from you.
Totally unrelated, but still in Georgia.
Yeah, this one's pretty wild.
God. So the story, in theory, was about a mayor of a town called Hoshton, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Teresa Kennerly's the mayor of the town, and the story in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is that they didn't hire a black man as the city administrator, like he was one of 4 finalists. They ended up not hiring him, but the mayor apparently said to one of the other city council members, quote, "He is black and the city isn't ready for this." Now, it's not clear that the candidate knew she said that. He said he withdrew from the job opportunity after the phone interview because he lived far away and they wanted him to pay his way for an interview.
Yeah.
So the racism may not have been the reason he didn't get the job. But the story is that city council members heard the mayor say something ridiculously racist. And there was a couple of city council members who were like, what do we do with that information? Yeah. They told the city attorney, and now it's public information. And that's not the worst part of the story.
No, it's not, which I would hope. So I want to cite that it's Councilwoman Hope Weeks. She was the one who kind of was the whistle blew. Yeah. But yeah, so a lot of people were having some super really good hot takes, including... this is Councilman Jim Cleveland?
That's right. Okay. Councilman. He's one of the few people who was in on this the whole time.
Quote, I don't know how they being the people of this town.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, 84.6% white. So shockingly white. I don't know how they would take it if we selected a black administrator. I'm a Christian, and my Christian beliefs are you don't do interracial marriage.
Pause there for a second. He's fine with her saying no to a black administrator. He actually said she might have been right. That was his quotation about not hiring the black city administrator. And then, voluntarily, he says this thing about my Christian beliefs are you don't do interracial marriage.
Talk about
this
unforced
story
error.
Had nothing to do with interracial marriage.
No, it's literally 2 people being in the same building. What is your fucking problem, dude?
But now we have a whole bunch of other questions.
But I think this is my favorite part coming up. That's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I believe. I have black friends. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
I hired black people. You did not. But when it comes to all this stuff you see on TV, when you see blacks and whites together, it just makes my blood boil because that's just not the way a Christian is supposed to live.
That's the city council. Again, if that guy can get elected, all of you can get elected somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, listen, you guys.
So here's the question that I
council.
had after I read this story. What church does this guy go to where he's getting these beliefs? And this became like, I swear to God, I just told my
rabbit hole, bud.
kids, go away. I need to figure this out. I'm going to ignore you for hours.
Even more so than usual.
I started going after this guy's Facebook profile. I'm like, let me find your friends of friends, someone in your church. If you go to a church, you're probably friends with people in your church. Let me figure out who all the pastors are that you know, because one of them might be your pastor. And I'm looking for pictures. Okay, seriously, scary rabbit hole I go down trying to figure. Let me find a picture of a church, or if I'm a church's Facebook page with this guy's picture in it, so I can link the two together. And then I could figure out what this church believes. This is my thought process. I found nothing.
What?
But I found one pastor who I think was related to this guy. So I reached out to him. And I'm like, hey, does this guy go to your church? And the guy's like, who are you? I'm like, I found it. So I'm like, let me give you a call, because his number was public information. So I gave him a call, and he picked up the phone. We had a short conversation. He genuinely said, I had not heard this story. So he couldn't believe it coming from me.
Sure.
So whatever. I'm just like, is he a member of your church? He was dodgy about the question. But get this. I was like, all right, well, I don't really have a story here, because like I can't confirm any of this. Next morning, the guy calls me back.
What?
Yeah, I didn't tell you this. The guy calls me back. He's like, I've had a chance to read the stories about this guy.
Oh my God.
They are related. And he basically said, this guy, one, he said the guy's not actually racist.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
whatever.
I would say his words would contradict that.
His
but
words are racist. His thoughts are
actions.
racist. But I guess he's not.
I guess he's not in his
He
soul.
said he doesn't go to my church. He lives hours away.
Okay.
He's like, I don't think he goes to a church. But like maybe he goes on the high holy days or whatever.
Churches in Georgia are too liberal these days.
Yeah, there's not enough of them either. He's like, I don't think he goes to one regularly. He might pop in on mine if he's close by, or he might go somewhere, but I don't know. I don't know if that was a dodge or whatever. But then he made it clear, like, that he doesn't buy into this. He thinks what Jim Cleveland said was appalling. And he also added, like, we've talked about Steven Anderson, that independent fundamentalist Baptist minister who says all the worst homophobic, misogynistic things.
Yeah.
Well, the pastor I was talking to is also independent fundamental Baptist minister. Like, they are like social issues that we take, like we believe. He's on the crazy deep end on the other side of all of that stuff. But, and I've been watching these people for years, like on YouTube and writing about them. I've never, ever heard them say anything racist. So I'm like, I would actually be surprised if, like, Jim Cleveland attended an IFB church and heard this. And I said this to the guy, too. I'm like, I know what you guys preach. And, like, yeah, homosexuality is a different issue, but we're not talking about that.
Right.
I don't know where he's getting this from. Like, do you hold these beliefs? And the guy's like, no, I don't. Like, so what verse is he pointing to that says interracial marriage is bad? And ultimately, that's kind of where we left the phone call. I just didn't. He didn't want to talk more. He clearly didn't know who I was in the sense that I'm an
you, Hemant, the most famous person?
No, he didn't know I was an atheist, and he didn't know what I was writing for. So he just didn't know me.
Do you just say I'm a journalist or whatever? Or
yeah,
I'm a writer?
I don't lie about it, but I just I don't say I write for Friendly Atheist. I'm just like, look, I'm writing about this for Patheos, which is accurate, but they don't know what that means. So I didn't get much from him. But ultimately, I still haven't figured out where this guy gets any of this from. No one's been able. It's not like Jim Cleveland has said, this is the Bible verse I'm citing. It's just a ridiculous racist thing.
Yeah.
And so there was a meeting of that city council since. They want Jim Cleveland to resign. They want the mayor to resign.
Good.
Nobody's resigning. Nothing's changed. Nothing's going to change.
At least there's local outrage, you know?
Yeah, at least there's some local outrage, but I would also, if you're a reporter in that area, please find me one of his black friends.
Yeah.
Get a name.
God.
I want to know if
and a picture of them together. and hey, white men in blackface do not count.
That picture's surely
out
there
I've
somewhere.
never been more sure about anything.
Yeah. All right. What else you got?
Let's see. Oh, I don't have a lot to say about this, but I just found out that the Satanic Temple is officially a religion via the U.S. government. They have tax exempt status now. So
they do have tax exempt status. So they are not the first. There was one in like 1980.
Oh yeah.
That did get nonprofit exemption as a church. Other groups have gotten, like other satanic groups have gotten nonprofit status.
Yeah.
But getting it as a church is a very unique thing. They now have that status as a church.
Scientology, the Catholic Church.
Which means they don't have to be transparent about a lot of things now. They will be, but like, it's amusing. The question is what they do with that. I don't know.
That's fun. I have one more abortion story.
Yes.
Because maybe one day I'll live in a world that I can do a podcast without talking about abortion.
Yes.
It is not this day. John Becker is an Ohio representative and also a character from a TV show from Ted Danson.
Okay.
But this John Becker, bad John Becker we'll call him, he is proposing HB 182. And it is, and I don't mean to shock you, an anti-choice bill. So this one, thankfully, goes even further than some of the other ones. Because this is sort of playing with what words mean, which is a neat thing for a legislator to do. So it targets, quote, non-therapeutic abortions. And this bill would prohibit health insurance and public benefit plans from offering coverage of it. So the definition that they use of a non-therapeutic abortion is an abortion that is performed or induced when the life of the mother would not be endangered if the fetus were carried to term, or when the pregnancy of the mother was not the result of rape or incest reported to a law enforcement agency.
An elective abortion.
Yes.
Okay.
So right now, insurance can cover it, but women have to buy a supplemental insurance because being a woman is a pre-existing condition that you have to account for. So Becker's plan would say no more of that. Like, no matter what, you can't
buy supplemental insurance.
Yeah,
for
you
this
can't
thing.
be insured for an abortion. He would also remove the rape and incest exemption, and so that's neat. But let's talk about what an abortion is, Hemant. Becker considers an abortion, quote, drugs or devices used to prevent the implantation of a fertilized ovum, which is what birth control is.
Yes.
I've got somebody from, I didn't write down the quote, but birth control pills, IUDs, and other methods of birth control like that. The bill states that any birth control that would act to stop a fertilized egg from implanting in the uterus is considered an abortion under his bill.
So literally before an egg is even fertilized, you are committing an abortion according to this guy.
Well, the egg is fertilized, but if it hasn't implanted yet.
Oh, okay.
Because,
All right.
Technicality. This is maybe, so all of this is not great, but pretty rote, right? Like this, we've seen shit like this before. Hemant, how much do you know about ectopic pregnancies?
That's when the fertilized egg has not implanted in the uterus. So it's like in the fallopian tube. And if it grows from there, holy shit.
Yeah.
Everything's
that's
the
basically
woman's
what it
dead.
is. Did I learn what it was from an episode of Grey's Anatomy? Yes. Do I know more now? Also, yes.
If there's an ectopic implantation of any kind, if there's an ectopic pregnancy, you need to take care of that shit fast before the woman dies.
Dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. So the bill excludes treatment for ectopic pregnancies from the insurance coverage band, which seems like a good thing because you need to treat these, until you hear what Becker has to say about how he would treat ectopic pregnancies. Quote, part of that treatment would be removing the embryo from the fallopian tube and then reinserting it in the uterus so that's defined not as an abortion under this bill. So
he thinks you could just pluck the egg out of the fallopian tube. Does he think it's on the outside of the tube?
It's hard to say what he does or does not think. The rules of logic don't apply to him, which is a fucking bananas thing to say. And also, like, it just shines such a bright spotlight on the fact that, like, these men do not know what the fuck they're
The
talking about.
people making decisions about women's bodies don't know the first thing about women's
Don't know
bodies.
the first thing about women's bodies. It's
And again, you don't have to know all this stuff, but
No,
then
I
don't write rules about this
Listen,
stuff.
I don't expect a 60-year-old white dude to know what an ectopic pregnancy is if he has lived his life in a way that he doesn't care about women's reproductive health. That's fine. That is absolutely his right. I don't know a ton about testicular cancer. That's okay too. But I would never dream to make rules about something that I actively don't understand. Like, it is the fucking wildest thing I've...
You cannot reimplant an ectopic pregnancy somewhere
That's
else.
not how
That's
it
not how it
works.
works. Said one person who had been in OBGYN for many years, it's such fucking bullshit that I might die of dumb white Christian Republican men.
Yeah.
Unquote, said a woman in Rewire News.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So anyway.
So that guy is a legislator too,
You
and you're
could
not.
You're not a legislator. If you're listening to this, statistically, you're not in the government. Go do it. Run for.
Take that guy's seat specifically.
Take his. Do you live in Ohio? It's a big state. Statistically, you probably live in Ohio.
Let's talk about statistics.
Did I do statistics good?
I got one other story here. Where do people watch the most porn in America?
Like, I'm sorry, before
Like,
I answer this, like, on their
country.
phone or, okay.
Country.
Like, laptop? iPad? The South.
Pretty much.
Like the Bible Belt.
So there's a professor, University of Oklahoma professor, Samuel Perry. He just wrote a book called Addicted to Lust, which is all about pornography in the lives
Might as
of
well
conservative
face it, you're
Protestants.
addicted to lust.
But very nice.
Thank you.
He did an interview for The New Yorker, and basically they talked about, like, what does porn do for these Christians who watch it?
Gives
And
them
this is
boners.
not a shaming thing. This is not, they're just like, what did you learn about the Christians who watch porn in the Bible Belt?
To masturbate. What do you mean?
Here's what the guy said. There is a connection, this is according to the professor, between viewing porn and experiencing depression. But, he said, the problem is not that they're watching porn. Don't blame porn on this.
Yeah.
He said the problem is it's only a problem for men who think they're violating their own moral code.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, when the Christians in the Bible Belt watch porn, it does have a nasty effect on them because they're living in a culture where you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
So, like, they feel extra bad about it.
Jesus.
But, like, for everyone else, it doesn't make a difference. Like, you can just feel crappy. He also said it's also bad because I'm quoting here, conservative Protestant women are twice as likely to divorce their husband because he watches porn.
Oh my God, that's so tragic.
And they think it is literally analogous to adultery or betrayal or a perversion. So the professor said the consequences of pornography use for their relationships are extreme compared to consequences for anybody else's relationships.
Huh.
And then so
I
that's
mean, that
part of
just
it.
reminds me of, it's all the same shit when they talk about like high suicide rates in trans kids or gay. It's like being trans or being queer doesn't make you
That's not the
depressed.
problem.
It's you dickbags who are treating them like a garbage person
Right.
for being themselves.
Right. My favorite part of this interview is they were saying, well, what about masturbation? Is that okay? And the professor says there is a small sliver,
You
like,
have to think of your spouse.
yes.
Is that it?
That's when masturbation is okay. And he offered this story. When would you be masturbating where it's not a wicked thing to do? Quote, one example might be that a Christian man and his wife are struggling with infertility and he has to go to a fertility clinic and masturbate into a cup.
So specific.
If he does so to pictures of his wife, and he's not looking at porn, and he's trying to make Christian babies with his Christian wife, nobody would say, hey, that was sinful masturbation.
So it's
you
even
see,
narrower.
It's a very narrow way where they're like, all right, now it's okay. But again, like, isn't the whole point of masturbation fantasizing? You don't fantasize about stuff that's that you have access
Yeah,
to.
but
I don't know.
I think that's interesting that like
The idea that you can only imagine sex if it's with the person you already have
and
sex
only
with.
for that specific so like if you're on a long trip and you're lonely in your hotel
I
room,
think he
like,
said if you're thinking about your wife,
period, it's fine.
fine. Like some Christians, even the ones who are anti all this stuff, they would say, fine, that's okay. But then we've also heard pastors in the past say things like, well, if you're a guy and you're masturbating, it means you're touching a dick and that makes you gay.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not enjoying this conversation.
Too bad.
I'm super uncomfortable.
I had to read it. Screw you. So
My dog's in the room. She can't hear. She's only 2.
I don't know this guy. I don't know his book, but it sounds like a fascinating book, Addicted to Lust.
Yeah,
Samuel
interesting.
Perry.
I have one more story, and it's
Yes.
actually it ends up being positive. It's gonna get dark though.
Okay.
So this is definitely a content/trigger warning. There's some like horrible rape in here. So just if you're uncomfortable, give me like 2 minutes. Skip ahead 2 minutes, and you don't have to listen to this. Jenny Thiessen. She is a woman in Minnesota. She was divorcing her husband. They had a couple kids together. She's going through his hard drive and looking for something, and she found 4 videos of herself unconscious in bed while her husband raped her.
Jesus.
In one video, the couple's son was sleeping in the bed with them.
Ah.
He would drug her so she would pass out, which she pointed out, not just like obviously the rape part is horrible, but she's like, I was passed out if something happened to the kids at night, like I couldn't react. The problem was in Minnesota, there was still a provision protecting her ex from being charged with rape because they were married at the time.
Jesus.
So she obviously goes to fight this. Tim Walz, he's the governor, a Democratic governor. He just signed the bill that repeals this provision, which wasn't necessarily really well known, but it shielded people from prosecution in cases where they raped their spouse. So I want to talk a little bit about marital rape because I didn't realize it was still such a prevalent thing, I guess. The exception can be traced back hundreds of years. It came across from Britain. And for a very long time, it was believed that if you marry a man, you are consenting to sex at any time. That is what it means to be married. You are inherently consenting to sex no matter what because you're married.
We literally had this conversation last week about the woman who's like, "What? Just do it. It takes a couple minutes."
Oh my God, such a healthy view of sex these people have. They stayed on the books through 1979, nationally. Until 1979, a man in Massachusetts broke into his own home. He and his wife were estranged. He wasn't staying with her. He broke into their house and then raped her. And it was the first marital rape conviction in the United States in 1979, which is wild. There is still currently a dozen states that shield spouses from prosecution in rape cases, including South Carolina, where a married victim has to prove a threat of physical violence within 30 days of the rape.
Jeez.
So that's all very sad that this still exists, and it's something we all have to work on. But the good news is Jenny Thiessen, who was so brave with coming forward, imagine how many times she had to tell that story about herself.
Yeah.
And she won. They repealed the law, and it's a happy ending, but like a grim few hundred years leading up to that ending.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing that she had to do, but
Yeah.
good for her and good thank you to her for making that happen.
And if her husband hadn't been filming it, she literally never would have known.
Yeah. And obviously she wanted to get divorced before she saw that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there were
They were
other
already
issues.
splitting up.
And then that happened. That's crazy. Well,
So anyway,
on that note,
ongoing story, Men Are Monsters. More next
Yes.
week. Where can we find you?
I am at Hemant Meta on the Twitter, friendlyatheist.com. Go to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast to support this show. And I'll say it again because you're never going to stop hearing it from me. Please, at least this week, go to Kickstarter, search for Pledge of Allegiance, and support the project I'm working on to make this giant audio history of the Pledge of Allegiance.
And Hemant isn't saying it, but before when we were off mic, he was like, we just want to make sure nobody pulls their money from Patreon to put towards Hemant's new project, because that would be the real tragedy of this thing.
You don't have to do that. I will say the Patreon subscribers for our podcast, if you're giving 25 or more, or no, I'm sorry, if you're giving $10 or more via Patreon, you will have early access to the show as a Patreon supporter. But if you can support it still, do it. I would appreciate it.
I did. You can find me on Twitter at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE. Find my cross-stitching stuff on Etsy at Bitches Got Stitched Done. I wouldn't necessarily encourage anybody to order something in the next couple weeks. I am trying to finish a project that I've been working on since December for my sister-in-law.
Nice.
And I really do want to finish it, and I keep getting orders, which is an embarrassment of riches, but here we are. I need to finish this fucking cross-stitch. What was I thinking? Why did I start such a complicated project? What else? Is that
That's
it?
We'll
you can email us at
week.
friendlyatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Cool. Hey, what happens when we hit when we hit our next...
Transcripts is the next goal.
Okay.
Patreon
and we're
goal.
getting close. We're
getting close.
We're almost there. So anyway,
after you support Kickstarter, support us on Patreon. You see how this works.
Just give us all your money, please. We work so hard. All right. See you guys
See
next
you
week.
soon. Bye.